Footwork. It wins fights without even having to land a single punch. I'm going to be going over footwork as quickly as I can. We're going to be doing a tier list from S tier all the way down to F tier. I'm going to list one fighter for each tier and then give some representatives alongside that one fighter. So, what am I judging footwork based off of, first and foremost? What I'm going to be judging footwork based off of is going to be effortless lateral movement, ability to create and exploit angles, rhythm, cadence control, balance while changing levels, ability to reset and circle off danger, feints and timing that force reactions, movements that set up combinations or dodges damage. So, starting us off in F tier, this is where footwork is a tactical liability or very one-dimensional. Movements either consistently making them predictable or leaves them exposed. And just note, being in F doesn't mean the fighter isn't lethal. Some heavy hitters are intentionally simple. And to start us off would be none other than the heavy hitter with bad footwork himself, Derrick Lewis. He has the least footwork out of anyone on this list. He relies very heavily on standing still, standing square, waiting for you to step into his zone and then throwing a big power punch that just sleeps you out cold. But when he versus someone with good footwork like Cyril Gane, or versus someone with the same power or similar power as him like Tai Tuivasa, whenever he gets hurt or rocked, he kind of just stands there against the cage and allows them to finish him. So for that reason, I'll be putting him in F tier. Some other F tier fighters in terms of footwork, not anything else, guys, once again, would be maybe Andrei Arlovski in his late career. His earlier format, better activity, ladies' feet can be heavy and reactive and leaving openings. And then Chael Sonnen, his striking footwork. He was great at pressure and cutting off the cage for wrestling, but when judged solely on striking movement, he's more of a linear cutter and not an angle creator. So that's going to be F tier. Then D tier. This is where they have limited mobility or stylistic constraints, but it's not horrible, but it's not good either. They're kind of just in the middle. So these fighters can be fast or powerful, but their footwork is either simple, linear, or leaves them vulnerable. And for me, the perfect example of this would be Francis Ngannou, raw, explosive forward steps and great short bursts, but a generally static stance and limited lateral angle work in long exchanges. He kind of just relies on blitzing forward, not really caring about how his footwork goes and just hoping he connects, because Ngannou is one of the few people on this planet who can be in the weirdest position footwork wise and still sleep you out cold. And then who else would I put in D tier? I would put Mark Hunt. He has a heavy feet brawler, great chin and timing, but not a mover. Movement often comes after the exchange and not to avoid it, because obviously Mark Hunt's not looking to avoid any exchanges. So I'd put Mark Hunt in D tier along with Francis Ngannou. Then C tier, functional, effective, in a style specific way. Footwork gets the job done, especially for pressure or clinch oriented styles, but it's not beautiful or highly creative. So the face of C tier for me, and now this is like good but not anything special or amazing, I'd have to put Khabib Nurmagomedov in C tier. His footwork is pressure walking, relentless forward pressure, forward control, cutting angles to the cage and having superb balance for takedowns, but not an evasionist footwork, but it was elite for his grappling game. So for that reason, I put Khabib in C tier. It wasn't designed for elegance. He kind of just walks you down. Then who else would I have in C tier? C tier, I would also put Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, early on in his career, didn't have really good footwork. And even now in his career where he's more refined and polished, he still tends to stand in the pocket here and there, which he's very good at. He's very good at fighting in the pocket, but footwork wise, I'd say he's good. Nothing amazing, just a very, very solid C tier. Maybe Tony Ferguson as well. He was unconventional, awkwardly effective. His footwork is chaotic and it works very well for him, but it's less textbook and more unpredictable. So it worked for him, but would I say it's textbook or anything to copy into your style? Not really. It kind of just worked for him. Then B tier. So this is very good footwork, situationally excellent, solid movement and a lot of good moments, sometimes less consistent under relentless pressure or against the cage. Here I'd put Kamaru Usman. He had that tight boxing footwork and he really controlled the center very well with that crazy jab and cross of his. That 1-2 of Kamaru Usman was crazy, and then behind that was his wrestling. And for that reason, he was able to control and dictate matches a lot, and that's why people mention him in the GO conversations for welterweight alongside GSP. In striking exchanges, his positioning is excellent, and the only reason I put him in B tier is because there wasn't anything flashy or angle focused. There wasn't anything of note, but it was very, very good irregardless. B tier, some other representatives, Robbie Lawler. He had explosive lateral bursts and head movement tied to his step-in power, but sometimes a little square under intense pressure. Who else? Maybe Jose Aldo. He was still technically strong, but earlier dominance versus later wear shows slight decline. He had footwork that worked well in the earlier rounds. Now, A tier. This is elite movers with minor limitations. Excellent movers who maybe lack one element that keeps them from S. Slightly less variety or less consistent defense when pressured. Here I'd put Max Holloway. Consistent pressure with measured pivots, excellent inside-out footwork to maintain punching lanes while moving forward, incredibly hard to knock out, incredibly hard to beat on the feet. He's knocked out Justin Gaethje. He's beat Dustin Poirier. He's stood toe-to-toe with Ilia Topuria for 3 rounds. Even though he got knocked out, he did pretty well against Ilia, considering all of other Ilia's fights. Who else would I put in A tier? I'd put Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida in his prime had crazy footwork and gave John Jones some real trouble in that first round of their fight. He was exceptional at stepping offline and countering from angles, and not always frenetic, but extremely hard to square up. And then maybe the last representative for A tier would be Valentina Shevchenko. Clean, composed footwork with excellent space management and timing for counters and leg kicks. Valentina has some of the best counter striking and leg kicks you'll ever see. Now, S tier, this is masterpiece level movement. This is gonna be the elite of the elite. In S tier, I would put number 1 and 2, Dominick Cruz and Anderson Silva. Dominick Cruz is literally the movement textbook. Constant lateral motion, stutter steps, sudden level changes, superb hip to foot connection. Cruz breaks rhythm, scrambles off lines, and always keeps opponents guessing where he'll be next. And for Anderson Silva, very fluid, deceptive, and economical. Silva's weight distribution and tiny pivots let him unload counters while seeming motionless. He makes opponents commit and then simply slips out of the pocket with minimal steps and sleeps them. We all saw what happened to Forrest Griffin. Other S tier fighters would be TJ Dillashaw and Israel Adesanya and George St. Pierre. I'd put them all in S tier. And then, you know what, actually guys, I'm going to put Conor McGregor in A tier. I put him in S tier in this list. I'm going to take him down to A tier for this reason. He has very, very elite footwork. Some of the best footwork you'll see in MMA. But when he gets tired, it becomes an issue. So for that reason, I'll put him in A tier. So yeah, guys, that's my very short and condensed tier list of footwork. I try not to be too long, not to yap too much. Give a few examples for each. If you guys want to go and watch their fights and come back to the comments and let me know if you agree or disagree, feel free to do so. But other than that, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you like me to do some more tier list videos like this, let me know, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.